it's crazy that these viruses keep coming out of Asian countries, especially China, due to these wet markets. And the more interesting thing is that China banned permanently wet markets across the land. Over 20,000 have been shut down. But they just released a good YouTube video, go look at it, where wet markets are popping up left and right in China, in Taiwan, in Thailand. They're popping up all over the place. And they're showing that a lot of these people are in impoverished situations, in impoverished neighborhoods, and they're doing this because this is a billion-dollar market. They're pushing these illegal wild animals for people to eat, and we get these viruses from them handling it first and then eating. So they're pushing these wild animals and making a profit, and a lot of them don't have education. A lot of them don't have success in their lives, so they turn to this. And it's funny because growing up, there's a stereotype in America that Asians are so good with math, that Asian people are immaculate when it comes to math and science. They're all rich and they become craziest rich Asians and they become successful in America. And the reason is we believe that, and that's how I grew up thinking, is because Americans around the Cold War tried to get Asians were discriminated against heavily in America. Then during the Cold War, they flipped and said, hey, Asians, we need your help right now. So they made it so they imported a bunch of Asian wealthy families. They imported Asian people that already had success, and the American government helped them assimilate into American culture. And then what they did was, and they don't teach this, so that's why most people don't know, they pinned Asian minorities against black minorities. And they said, hey, black people, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Look at Asian people. Look how well they're doing. They're great at math. That's where we get that from. They even used Asian people to tell black people, look, you don't need civil rights. Look it up. It's crazy history. But the fact of the matter is, wet markets are popping up all over the place. So just get ready for the next pandemic. Okay? But why? No one asked why these wet markets keep popping up. Just like in America, we have our own version of wet market. It's called selling drugs. We sell drugs in America, break the law to sell drugs in America, for we can feed our families because we're uneducated, we're in impoverished neighborhoods, we have a lack of resources. I talked to my buddy the other day, got fired from his he's a promoter. And now that he's not making money, he said, bro, I can see why people sell drugs because I can get into that right now. I don't need an education. He doesn't have a degree. So now I can see, he said, now I can see why people sell drugs so quickly. I can turn a profit quickly without the education because I couldn't afford to go to college and pay for them loans anyway. I know lawyers right now that are making $90K, $100K, but their student loans are $170,000. So you getting paid less as a lawyer than the amount of time it takes you to go to school, and plus your 4 years of undergrad. So that's a whole nother issue. But the fact of the matter is, when you close down one neighborhood from selling drugs, another one pops up around the corner. Why is that? Because America does something called trimming the tree. So does Asia. We trim the trees of the leaves, and then the leaves grow back because we do not deal with the root cause. We don't like to deal with the root issue. In this country and in this world, we don't like to deal with the root issue because if you deal with the root causes, you'll have to deal with miseducation, these insane student loans that we're paying to try to get an education, impoverished neighborhoods. People get stuck and trapped in poverty when you're already in an impoverished neighborhood. Then if you go to prison, they put that felony on your back. You can't even vote then. You can't vote. You're not getting hired where I work if you have a felony. Sometimes even certain misdemeanors, you cannot get a big-time engineer job with a misdemeanor. So the truth of the matter is, until we deal with the root problems here in America, as well as in these Asian countries, it doesn't matter. You might as well get ready for the next pandemic because the wet markets are going to keep popping up like they are right now, and they're going to keep eating these animals, and we're going to have these SARS, Freaking, we got HIV from chimpanzees, and now the coronavirus from bats and pangolins. We're going to keep going through this until these governments, people in power, in the power structure, deal with these root causes. Because once you deal with the poverty, the education, the lack of funding to start your own business, once you deal with that, people are not going to have the need to open wet markets as much. Just like in America, you're not going to have the need to sell drugs as much when you have equal access to wealth. Okay? Because at the end of the day, who was selling the drugs in the 1930s? The Irish mobsters. Who was pushing the guns and drugs? The Irish gangsters, the Italian mobsters. That's who was pushing it. But when they got upgraded to white status, people remember, Italians were not considered white in the 1930s. Irish was not considered white until the 1930s. In fact, that's why they said Christopher Columbus discovered America. They said that because people were being racist towards Italians. Okay? So as they moved out of the inner city and moved and assimilated to the suburbs, black folks moved in. So that's honestly what it is. Until you deal with the root cause, these wet markets are going to keep popping up.